The Seattle waterfront pulsed with the electric hum of innovation, its glass towers slicing through the autumn drizzle like blades of ambition. Nora Chin stood in her corner office at Quantum Labs, a scrappy tech startup nestled in the heart of Pioneer Square. At 31, she was the youngest CTO in Seattle's ruthless tech scene, her algorithms the silent guardians of half the world's cloud security. Her navy blazer was tailored to her petite frame, her jet-black hair swept into a sleek bun, but her emerald-green eyes burned with a restless curiosity that never slept. Tonight, her focus wasn't on the lines of code scrolling across her dual monitors, it was on a faint, erratic signal flickering in the data stream, like a whisper in a storm. Nora hadn't risen to this height by luck. Born to a Taiwanese immigrant mother who scrubbed office floors to fund Nora's coding boot camps, she'd learned to see patterns where others saw chaos. Her peers called her relentless, her rivals obsessive. She'd once debugged a system crash during a 3 a.m. hackathon, earning her the nickname Ghost in the Machine. Now, that same instinct had snagged on an anomaly, a rhythmic pulse buried in Quantum Labs servers, encrypted so tightly it felt alive. It wasn't noise. It was deliberate, a coded heartbeat repeating every 47 seconds, a sequence of prime numbers that sang of intent. The office door swung open, and Ethan Caldwell, Quantum Labs CEO, strode in, his presence filling the room like a sudden gust. His charcoal suit hugged his lean frame, his sandy hair artfully tousled, but his ice-blue eyes held a guarded edge that Nora had begun to notice more often. At 38, Ethan was a Silicon Valley transplant with a golden tongue and a knack for turning skeptics into investors. He'd mentored Nora since her grad school days at MIT, his charisma opening doors she'd had to pry open with sheer grit. "Nora, it's past 10. Go home," he said, his voice warm but tinged with a strain she couldn't place. She swiveled her monitor toward him, the screen glowing with jagged spikes of data. "Not tonight, Ethan. Look at this. It's a signal embedded in our servers. Someone's sending a message and they're using our own encryption to do it." Ethan leaned over her desk, his cologne sharp and cedar-laced, his brow creasing as he studied the graph. "A message? From who? Competitors? Hackers?" His tone was curious, but his fingers twitched, betraying a flicker of unease. "No clue yet," Nora admitted, her fingers flying across the keyboard to isolate the signal's frequency. "But it's too sophisticated for a random hack. Whoever did this knows our system better than we do." He straightened, his jaw tight, a shadow crossing his face. Could be a stress test gone wrong, or a rival fishing for vulnerabilities. He glanced at his smartwatch, a sleek prototype from their R&D lab that glinted under the office lights. "Dig into it, but keep it under wraps. We're 3 weeks from a funding round. A leak could tank us." Nora nodded, but her gut churned. Ethan had been her rock, the one who championed her when Seattle's Old Boy Tech Club dismissed her as that coder girl. Lately, though, his late-night calls with investors and evasive answers about their new AI project with Horizon Ventures felt off. She pushed the doubt down, focusing on the signal's cryptic pulse. The next evening, Quantum Lab's open plan office thrummed with the clatter of keyboards and the buzz of coders chasing deadlines. Nora worked alone in a glass-walled conference room, her laptop tethered to a custom server she called the Vault, a fortress of her own design. The signal was stronger now, its prime number pattern looping like a taunt. She traced its origin to a decommissioned server in Reykjavik, Iceland, but the trail splintered into proxies across Singapore, Moscow, and Sao Paulo. Someone was covering their tracks with surgical precision. Her phone buzzed, jolting her from her trance. A text from Lila Patel, her best friend and Quantum Lab's lead AI researcher, peer. "Now. Found something weird." Lila's bluntness was as familiar as her sharp Indian accent, undiluted by a decade in Seattle. Nora grabbed her worn leather jacket, its pockets stuffed with USB drives, and headed to the waterfront, the signal's rhythm echoing in her mind like a coded mantra. At the pier, Lila stood under a flickering street lamp, her short bob plastered to her face by the rain. Her brown eyes, usually warm with mischief, were steely with urgency. She clutched a tablet, its screen glowing with a heat map of data traffic. "Your signal's not alone," she said, her voice low. "I found matching patterns in our AI training data. Someone's been siphoning processing power, Nora. They're running something massive on our servers." Nora's pulse spiked. "What kind of massive?" Lila zoomed in on the heat map, revealing a dense cluster of activity tied to an IP address in Ethan's office. "No idea yet, but it's eating resources we didn't even know we had. And this." She pointed to the IP. "It's coming from Ethan's machine." Nora's breath caught. Ethan? That's impossible. He'd have no reason to, wouldn't he? Lila's voice was sharp, her gaze unflinching. He's been obsessed with Horizon Ventures. I dug into their financials, shell companies layered like a maze. Shady doesn't even begin to cover it. Nora's mind spun. Horizon Ventures was Ethan's pet project, a secretive deal he'd pitched as their golden ticket to dominate AI-driven security. She trusted his vision, but the signal, the siphoned power, the IP address, it all pointed to a betrayal. I need to talk to him, she said, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. Lila grabbed her arm, her grip firm. Watch your back, Nora. If Ethan's in this, he's not playing alone. The next morning, Nora waited in Ethan's office, the signal's printout spread across his desk like an accusation. The fog outside shrouded Puget Sound, mirroring the haze in her mind. Ethan arrived, his smile fading when he saw the papers. Nora, what's this? His voice was smooth, but his eyes darted to the printout. She pushed the papers toward him. The signal. It's coming from your office, Ethan. Someone's using our servers for an off-book project, and it's tied to you. His eyes widened, but he recovered with a practiced laugh, leaning back in his chair. My office? Nora, come on. It's probably a routing glitch. Our network's a mess, you know that. Don't, she said, her voice cutting through his charm. The data doesn't lie. You're linked to Horizon Ventures and they're siphoning our tech. What are you hiding? Ethan's face tightened, a flicker of guilt or fear flashing across his features. You're reaching, Nora. Horizon's just an investor. The signal? Probably some kid in a basement screwing with us. He stood, grabbing his coat. I've got a meeting. Let's cool off and talk later. As he turned, Nora's gaze landed on his smartwatch, left charging on the desk. Her heart pounded. She shouldn't, but she had to know. With Ethan gone, she tapped the watch's screen, using a debug code she'd written for their prototypes. A hidden app flickered to life, streaming data packets that matched the signal's signature. Worse, it was syncing with an external server labeled Horizon. Her hands shook as she copied the data to a USB drive, her mind racing with the weight of betrayal. Nora enlisted Lila and Diego Ruiz, a wiry ex-NSA hacker with a shaved head and a penchant for black hoodies. Diego's reputation in Seattle's underground tech scene was legendary. He'd once cracked a Pentagon firewall for a bet. In a dimly lit co-working space in Belltown, they tore into the signal's code. Diego's fingers flew across his keyboard, his dark eyes gleaming with excitement. This isn't just a message, he said, his voice low and gravelly. It's a handshake for an AI, a monster of one. It's using your servers as a relay to hide its real location. Lila leaned over his shoulder, her brow furrowed. What's it doing? Diego's screen flashed with fragments of code, neural networks, predictive algorithms. It's a beast. It's learning from global data, stock markets, social media, satellite feeds. Someone's building a system to predict and control everything. Markets, elections, you name it. Nora's blood ran cold. And Ethan's feeding it our resources. Diego nodded, his expression grim. He's not the brains, though. This code's too clean, too elite. Someone bigger is running the show. Over the next week, Nora barely slept, her apartment littered with coffee cups and sticky notes mapping the signal's path. With Lila and Diego, she traced it to a shell company in the Cayman Islands linked to Cassandra Voss, a billionaire tech mogul who'd vanished after her last startup imploded amid fraud allegations. Voss was a ghost, her name whispered in tech circles like a warning. Rumors said she was plotting a comeback and AI to reshape the world. Nora confronted Ethan at his penthouse in Belltown, the city's lights sprawling below like a digital constellation. She tossed a dossier onto his glass coffee table, its pages detailing Voss's shell companies and the signals trail. Cassandra Voss, she said, her voice steady. She's using you, Ethan. You're funneling our tech to her AI, and it's not just a startup. It's a weapon. Ethan's face paled, his charm crumbling. He sank onto the couch, his hands shaking. Nora, you don't get it. Voss, she's unstoppable. She promised me a stake in her vision, an AI that predicts everything, markets, governments, wars. It's the future. At what cost? Nora snapped, her green eyes blazing. You're betraying everyone who built Quantum Labs. For what? Her promises? Or her threats? He looked away, his voice barely a whisper. She has leverage. Old debts from my last startup. If I didn't play ball, she'd destroy me. Nora didn't buy his victim act, but she used it. She fed Ethan false data, convincing him she'd backed off. Meanwhile, She and Diego hacked into Voss's servers, planting a kill switch in her AI's code, a digital guillotine. Lila, ever the strategist, leaked anonymized evidence to the SEC, framing it as a whistleblower tip about Horizon's financial web. At Quantum Lab's annual keynote, Nora took the stage in a sharp white suit, her presence commanding the packed auditorium of investors, journalists, and coders. Her voice was steady as she unveiled a new security protocol, secretly embedding the kill switch. As she spoke, Diego, hidden in the crowd with a burner laptop, triggered the switch. Voss's AI crashed, its servers frying across 3 continents. Nora's screen flashed a single word: terminated. The crowd applauded, oblivious to the war she'd just won. Cassandra Voss's empire unraveled as regulators raided her shell companies. Ethan resigned, his reputation in tatters, though Nora spared him public exposure to protect Quantum Labs. He left Seattle, a broken man chasing redemption elsewhere. Voss vanished again, her comeback shattered, her name a cautionary tale. Diego joined Quantum Labs, his skills now fortifying Nora's vision. Lila remained her anchor, her sharp wit a constant in the chaos. 6 months later, Nora stood at the pier, the waterfront alive with the city's hum. Quantum Labs was thriving, its mission realigned to ethical tech. Lila joined her, a coffee in hand, her smile fierce. "You slayed a dragon, Nora. Not bad for a code nerd." Nora grinned, her heart lighter than it had been in years. "To us," she said, raising an imaginary glass. "And to rewriting their rules." In a world where data is power, Nora's journey exposes the razor's edge of ambition. Ethan's betrayal, driven by greed and fear, reveals the fragility of trust in the race for innovation. Cassandra's cold genius, wielding AI as a puppet master, warns of the dangers lurking in unchecked tech. Lila and Diego's loyalty, forged in principle, proves that true allies are the backbone of any fight. Nora's transformation, from a coder chasing patterns to a leader dismantling a conspiracy, teaches a timeless truth. In the labyrinth of tech's promises, only those who see the hidden signals can shape their own destiny.